So, Vanessa, it would be great to get started with a little bit of your journey into the world of veganism. What brought you here?
Well, it was about 8 years ago that I started it might even be 9, when you've been telling people 8 years for like 3 years and you're like, hold on, it might be more. Let's go with 8 or 9 or 10 years. I basically I knew what a vegan was, but I was a bit like, but yeah, it's a bit weird. I was like, oh yeah, I get it. Why would you be vegetarian? I get that. But there's nothing wrong with milk and eggs, so I don't get it, and it just sounds like a step too far, and it sounds a bit annoying. I don't want to say I'd never eaten vegan food because banana's vegan. But I'd never officially gone out to eat like vegan food or anything like that, and it was a long time ago. Things were very different, and I am a big animal lover, and I did have some of my vegetarian friends who I now get to roast them, but they used to roast me for not being vegetarian, and they were like, yeah, but you're an animal lover, and I was like, it's different, shh, leave me alone, I'm happy. And I took a trip to India for fun for a month, and I decided not to eat meat purely because I didn't want to get ill. I was like, right, this seems like the best solution. I'm not going to eat meat. I don't want to get ill. And I was annoyed about it at first. I was like, well, how am I going to be full? It's going to be really annoying. Not eating meat, but I'll do it because my will to not get ill was so big. I was like, I don't want to have a funny tummy in India, Delhi belly or whatever it is they call it. And I met quite a lot of vegetarians, but also my biggest thing was that I ate lentils and felt really full. And the truth was, the reason I didn't engage with a lot of reasons to be vegetarian or even try it was, let's face it, I'd eaten some terrible vegetarian food that didn't make me full at all. And I thought, why would I do this to myself on a daily basis? But when I realized, hold on, like I can be really full, I can be happy. And I said to myself, okay, I'm going to engage. I'm going to look this up when I get home. Vegetarianism. I can't even remember what I put into Google, but my whole world turned on its head. I cannot even, because when you go, I'm going to type in vegetarian, I don't know what I typed in. And within that day, I realized, okay, I understand the whole egg milk thing. I understand it's all from the same industry. I understand what's happening to the animals. And for me, it was pretty much 100% about the animals. That was, and I was also like, I've been lied to and I've got to tell everyone else. They'll be really interested to know this. And they will all listen to me. But that wasn't quite the case. People turned out, they weren't that interested. They are now, but not so much at the time. And I've always been interested in health, so the kind of health side of it came into things as well. And then I tried to watch Earthlings, but I justified myself in only watching 20 minutes because I was like, I've bought into these arguments, so I shall not watch any more of this film. Watched Cowspiracy, and the environmental side came up for me. And then I started understanding the health side and how amazing the food could be. And that's what's kind of taken me to the place I am now. That was a long answer, sorry.
No, not at all. Long answers are what we do here. So you're well within your rights to tell that story. So it started with this kind of, I guess it was a love for animals and an understanding, an awakening moment. How were you from a health point of view? What was your understanding like? Did you kind of feel confident in what you were doing, or was it simply like, I just need to get these products out of my diet rather than what am I going to bring in?
Do you know what? For me, it was quite kind of holistic in the sense that I've been cooking since I was like 7 years old, and I've always been this massive food lover. And so for me, it was about what amazing food can I eat? So there was like how can I take this out? And yeah, a little bit, there might have been a bit more swap for swap kind of thing. Like, I would have had sausages, so I'm going to have vegan sausages now. Totally legitimate even now. But as you know, there's so much amazing food we can have just in its own right, whether that is a kind of jackfruit curry or, a tofu Thai curry or whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be, I've swapped this for this. But it was the kind of, okay, let's stop eating these products. But I've always, I don't want to say I've always been really into health, because that's obviously not true with some of the stuff I was previously eating. I've always thought I was into health. It's always been, I've always been striving to, and even before I went vegan, was sort of striving to eat more plants anyway. But I was still a big meat eater. I was eating a lot of meat, a lot of fish. Like I will not deny that at all in any way, shape, or form. But for me, it was very much, okay, how can I eat to stay full? I'm one of those people. I like my comfort. I like to stay full. I like my good food. If you want to annoy me, serve me bad food. And so it was that journey for me of how can I create amazing, balanced food that's going to keep me, sustained throughout the day, so that I'm not thinking about my belly kind of thing. And how can I do that now that I've decided not to eat animal products? And I get why people sometimes freak out and don't engage in the arguments, because sometimes they are going, okay, well, what do I eat? And that's a scary thought, therefore I'm not going to engage. And so that's become one of my missions, is like, okay, that people should never not engage with the arguments because they're scared of what they're going to eat, and we need to give people the tools for that.
Absolutely. Was it a bit of a process of discovery then on your own, or was it a case of, I need to go and find resources, I need to find a community around me to help me learn, what all this kind of vast array of plant-based food that I can eat? Which way did you kind of go? Was it a combination?
Yeah, do you know what? It is a combination, and I always think, however much, obviously, like, I coach people, but I still encourage them. Still go and engage in Facebook groups and things where people are sharing recipes, and go to vegan markets and check what's going on and sample the food. You've got to have that flow of inspiration. But for me, I'd always been really into cooking. So I'd always loved trying out new recipes and playing with flavors and stuff like that. So it was kind of getting in my kitchen and doing a bit of that. But then also, like, really making an effort to go to any vegan fair or vegan market that was accessible to me, to really get inspiration. And also, like, especially back then, the 8, 9 or 10 years ago, we can't remember which, there weren't many vegans. And actually, like, that was hard, that even though, loads of my friends aren't vegan, et cetera, but you still need to talk to people who are vegan and get inspiration from them in terms of food and health and all that kind of stuff. So I would go to fairs, and there, back in the day, there were vegan meetups, and they were called like no meat meetups. Ha 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 ha. It's very clever. And used to go to some of those, and now I haven't been to that kind of stuff for years, because vegan food is a lot more accessible and accepted as well. People get why you're vegan, whereas kind of, back then it was a little bit of a harder sell.
Yeah, I can imagine. You mentioned obviously you had a health conscious approach before turning to veganism, before adapting to a plant-based diet, but were by your admission now, probably you felt misguided perhaps back then. Did that come with some trepidation then when you went to kind of move to plant-based diets, just talking about the food element, and did it give you some trepidation in terms of, like, am I going to be healthy? Did you have to go through quite a learning process from that point of view to kind of satisfy your health consciousness?
I really don't think I did, actually, and just thinking about it, I suppose because I was always very into eating lots of veg, even though I was also eating lots of meat and fish and eggs and dairy and all those things. I was still pretty up on, my exercise and health. I'd stopped drinking at the age of 21, which was nearly 15 years ago or something like that. That I sort of understood quite a lot about health anyway. And I think, to be honest, what stopped me being worried was how I was feeling. That I was like, right, I'm full of energy, I'm satisfied, I'm eating amazing food. And I think because I understood the basics, that I was like, well, I know I'm getting a ton. I always knew that with fruit and veg, I was getting a ton of nutrients anyway.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, the meat and fish was about protein, get my protein in and get me all full. I was like, well, it's all good. I'm doing that with lentils and tofu now.
Right.
Still got all my all those amazing plants. I think at the time as well, as I was kind of just trying to, because I wasn't quite as up on all the health knowledge that, back then, those 8 years ago, something like cutting out eggs for me was just a bit like, okay, how do we do that with something that is also high protein? Because that was kind of the reason I ate eggs.
Yeah.
So I was very aware, right, if you, replace eggs with ackee, whereas ackee is a fruit that's you generally get from Jamaica. I knew that the protein content would not be the same. I knew enough about that, so I was like, well, whatever I replace eggs with, I know for me it's got to be something that's a bit kind of higher protein as well. And then I learnt very quickly about the dairy side, which created a lot of anger as well at things like, I had really bad acne, and I do not wear any makeup on my skin, and that is not me saying that to brag. I am saying it because I have had acne, and I understand that what you put in your body affects your skin, and I know so many people suffering with acne. I did not realize how much things like your diet, dairy can affect your skin, and it makes me really angry that people are going to specialists who are giving them all sorts of creams and not telling them about what they can put in their bodies or not put in their bodies. And a doctor used to give me this steroid cream that I put on my face, and that was, to me, that was a great solution. I was like, whew, thank goodness there's something on the market that's going to help all these spots. And learning, actually, I don't need that stuff, and actually, you can clear up some really like long-term conditions. Like, I've been struggling with spotty skin for quite a while. Actually, I'll take these few things out of my diet and really up the kind of nutrients, fresh food, plant foods, and you get a transformation you could never have imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking about that, obviously you felt these benefits. You've transitioned over to the plant-based diet. You've felt the benefits. You're kind of ethically all in, so sort of veganism in the broader sense. Was there a specific moment that you can recall where you thought, actually, I want to get myself to a position where I feel comfortable to share knowledge with others? What was it that was the inspiration for that?
I'm going to say I'm one of those people who's always been quite outspoken, and it's probably from the very beginning. From the very beginning, I was like, guess what I've just found out? Not always met with the best reception, I'll say. But, I mean, look, I think knowledge is so important. And, I think I believe everyone, this is going to sound a bit soppy, but I believe everyone's born vegan, right? I believe everyone, you get with your group of friends and someone brings in a puppy. Is anyone cooking that puppy? Like, everyone is hugging that puppy, loving it, protecting it, cooing over it, all of those things. This is like our natural instinct to love each other and love other beings. And I think along the way, we are taught to get rid of that. And I know that's, you've probably heard that before from other people as well. So in terms of kind of wanting to speak up, like, knowing how much other living beings were suffering, I wanted to speak up. And actually what I did to begin with, because I was just so desperate to do something, is I actually used to do a lot of street activism. I used to do bits of street activism with like people like Earthling Ed as well, because I was like, I got to say something, I got to do something. There is probably some hideous YouTube video of me somewhere doing some kind of activism in Leicester Square many years ago, because I just wanted to talk to people. And some of the activism was incredible in the sense that, you're just having conversations with people on a Saturday night, and just saying like, did you know this was happening? You'd have people standing there with the laptops showing videos, and I loved talking to people. And I would just say, like, it was very gentle. Do you know what's going on in this video? And if they were far away from the laptop, I'd just say, come, let's go have a look together. Let's go chat. So I was always very outspoken in that sense, and I've definitely changed my approach, because I I don't talk about the animal side of it. Well, I do still talk about it, but not. It's not the area of work I've gone into, because I've decided that there are some people who are doing amazing work in helping show people what's going on. But I kind of realised later, like, what I was good at was the health side and really helping people with their diets. But I thought, actually, people can go and find that information somewhere else and engage with that. But a lot of people are not even going to engage with the health side and the diet side or anything like that if they feel worried about what they're going to eat, or if they feel they have to maybe go fully vegan. And some people it's just a different route. Some people go through the sort of the animals and then go down the health side. But there's a lot of people trying to come in through the health route, and they're trying to come into it through there. So I decided, right, I'm going to try and help those people, get them to realize how amazing this food is, but also to look after them. This is also a huge thing. Like, people are suffering. People are eating products they don't realize are damaging their bodies. We have an obesity crisis. We have a crisis of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, all sorts of other diseases where animal products are a contributing factor to them. And I don't like saying this either. I'm non-speciesist in every sense of the word. I want to look after humans, animals. I want everyone to be happy. And if people are suffering with these diseases, and even things that just affect your self-confidence, like bad skin, we can find a way of solving these as well with vegan food and plant-based food, as long as it's on the healthier side. But there's also a place for that unhealthy food as well.
So with that kind of inspiration in your mind, what then was the journey like to becoming, qualified to do that, and feeling comfortable in, like, okay, I can share something not just from my own experience, but really backed up by the science and so on and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all, I started a recipe website with a friend, Louise Claire Kaiser. We started the Vegan Larder. The recipe website is still going. It's fantastic. There's loads of my recipes on there, and the two of us worked on that for a long time, and she's taken that on herself. So I've been designing and creating amazing, well-tested vegan recipes for years. So I understood the flavors, the ingredients, what's filling, all of those sorts of things. But what I also found, I was living and breathing a busy life with healthy food prep. And that's often the side I think people struggle with. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm meant to be eating more of this, more of that. Yes, there's also huge knowledge gaps people have. But a lot of people, it's like, I don't understand how I do this every day. I don't understand how to be effective in this. I don't understand what I'm meant to cook. I don't understand how to, people say you need variety, and 100% you need variety. It is so important to get all our nutrients, our vitamins, our minerals. It's key for our gut health. I can mention really quickly why variety is key for gut health, if that's okay.
By all means.
I think it's important for people to know. So people talk about probiotics a lot, which is the good gut bacteria, right? And people often you can take probiotics as pills. Nothing also wrong with doing that, but we have to feed those probiotics. They live off something called prebiotics, which is fiber. Fiber is in plants. There is no dietary fiber in animal products, but we need to get a range of fiber, a variety of fiber, to keep alive a variety of probiotics, or you might have heard it called our microbiome, our gut microbiome, right? So if we don't have variety, we can't feed a variety of fiber to all those wonderful probiotics, good gut bacteria, and therefore have a thriving load of good gut bacteria in our gut, which is key for our health. So a lot of people know, yes, I need to eat the rainbow, yes, I need this variety, but a lot of people don't know how to do it. And that's a very practical thing. So you've got that science of, okay, yeah, this is why we need variety. Then it's, people can read that, and then it's like, yeah, how do I do that? How do I do that every day? How do I do that without it being me walking in the kitchen going, how does this work? That's very much needing a structure and a process and organization and support in order to do that. So I was doing it with myself, and then a few years ago, I started taking on a few one-to-one clients while also doing the sort of recipe design and things like that. and started creating materials and structure to actually get people a transformation. Now, I also have a background in applied biological anthropology from Cambridge University. So I've always understood biology. I've always kept up on the research on that. And I think that's really important. And I also worked as a sort of a change manager and trainer in the corporate world as well, in the workplace. So in terms of creating training materials and learning materials, I sort of had this corporate background that could do that. I had the biological anthropology background from Cambridge. And then the biggest thing I'm going to say, even without either of that corporate background, Cambridge background or anything, what I had was I live and breathe this every single day. And I started actually working with people and getting them results and getting them to really effectively change their diets, change their energy levels, their weight, their health, all those sorts of things with this structure. And so more than any of that other stuff and the vegan larder and designing recipes and knowing about vegan food, it's like, right, okay, actually getting people to change their lives and having this daily structure in place, I would say is now the biggest thing that I use to say, well, actually that probably qualifies me more than any of that stuff.
Yeah. But all those things kind of fed in, I guess, and they make you who you are now, and give you what you can do, you can give to others. So talking about that, like, how does that process start? You know, you meet somebody who wants some help. What does that look like? Yeah.
So the people I help, it's anyone who wants high energy, a healthy weight. So I work with people who can be very overweight, or people who just say, look, you know, a bit yo-yo, or, you know, a bit of a tummy. Even people who don't necessarily want to lose weight, but they want to have a completely healthy lifestyle, but really get their energy levels up. And also people who want to eat really delicious plant-based food. You know, this shouldn't be painful or boring. It should be amazing and fun and enjoyable, and help you with your long life. So I have a Facebook group called How to Go Plant-Based. Everyone is welcome to come and join that. So some people, you know, they meet me and they come to me through that. Other people have come to me through daily life, but various people come to me through social media as well. And you know, first of all, I find out from them, you know, can I actually help you? What are you looking for? And when they come on my program, it's basically this incredible transformation where you get, you know, mix. You can do one-to-one with me as well, which is also fantastic. But it's basically getting the information, the structure and support that you need to really have, like I said, how do I get that variety every day without the stress and the worry and the, you know, walking into my kitchen with all that confusion? How do I replace meat products, fish products, etc., with natural plant foods, as well as there's still a place for the unhealthy kind of stuff as well. Very much, how am I cooking to stay healthy? So that is, you know, reduced oil or no oil techniques. We still have a bit of oil, but it's how can I just reduce this stuff as much as possible as well, which is going to help my health, my inflammation, as well as my weight. We also do a mix of cooking lessons, and we have one-to-one support as well. Everyone who even comes through my group coaching gets one-to-one support with me, so there's a very personalized, bespoke plan to keep people accountable and on track. And I actually see people's food every day, so I get them to post what they're eating every day, so I can say, okay, so we're learning very much about like balanced eating. So what makes, and this is just so important, and it's even more as I've gone through my coaching processes, like this has come up more and more, so it's a real focus now for me. You know, what makes up a balanced meal so that I am going to be satisfied? I'm not going to be hungry in a couple of hours. I am getting all of the nutrients that I need. I am going to stay a healthy weight. It's painful for people when they say, I feel like I'm doing everything right and I just can't lose any of this weight. And it's making sure they are in charge of themselves and their lives. And so by looking at their plates and looking at their food, I can say, okay, we want to have a bit less of this and a bit more of this. Or did you remember to put, you know, those healthy fats in there? Right, go back and look at this resource and make sure you're doing that in all your meals. So it's really that kind of tweaking coaching as well, which no one else is going to do for you. No one's going to look across at your food on the other side of the table and go, oh, by the way, you may not be having enough of this or that, because you might get a punch in the face, right? If someone's doing that to you.
No, it's true. It can be difficult even when you're very close with somebody, you know, with a partner or whatever, for them to feel to have that relationship where somebody's comfortable enough to say, I don't think you should be eating that. It feels almost like controlling. But when you kind of invite somebody in who can do that for you, be that objective pair of eyes, it's no doubt very, very helpful to many folks. Thinking about the folks who do come and look for your support, are they generally plant-based or vegan curious or omnivorous? What's the general kind of route to you?
Yeah, do you know what? And I did do a load of thinking about this because I was like, do I niche it? And then I was like, no, you know what? I'm looking at my current coaching group, and it's also a mix of like UK and US. So you can join me. You can join me wherever you are in the world. That's the joy of Zoom, things like that. I think what I've worked with is almost like half fully vegan people, and the thing they're struggling with, whether you're vegan or not, we are not taught in school how to have balanced, healthy eating and prepare food or any of that stuff. So you get a ton of vegans who are like, I've been vegan for 4 years, but I'm not really feeling the health benefits. They're struggling with their weight, their energy's low. And when I look at their food, it only takes me a few food pictures for me to go, well, I can see why. It's all very solvable. So that's another thing for people to be really aware of when they're sort of thinking, I don't know what else to do with my food. Once you get an expert just to have a look, you realize actually there's some huge changes you can make from kind of day one. So I've got those vegans. Then I've got people who have been curious about plant-based, and also very much feeling the, maybe sort of plus 40 or plus 45 people saying, starting to feel my energy is not where it used to be, and I want to enjoy life, and actually I'm struggling to get through the day, and they've kind of seen that plant-based is good, and they've been trying to eat more vegetables, and they sort of come across me, and we have a chat, and they kind of end up on the program, because they really realize it's their route to go, but they are not committed to being 100% plant-based, and that is fine, and it doesn't matter. I support people no matter where they kind of want to be on that scale, and what they usually find is, even if they go, I'm going to go 80%, don't make me do more, and I go, okay, fine. And then they end up at 90% anyway, because they start realizing how great the food is and how easy it is. And, you let them have their goal to begin with, and that's fine, because it's also got to feel doable for them. But then it very quickly starts moving up, and they sort of go, actually, this was kind of easier. And maybe for them, they still have some animal products here and there or whatever. But they still can end up quite plant-based as well. But the biggest thing for them is really seeing like these huge transformations in their health as well. And a lot of people might also be thinking about the environment as well. And then for some, the animals might come later. It's different places for everyone. But I've also had people come to me who say, I want to go vegan for the animals, but I haven't got a clue what I'm doing with the food, and I don't really know how to keep this up, and I'm scared I'm not going to keep it up.
I guess that's probably, I guess it's pretty satisfying for you as somebody who is kind of, at least in the background, if you like. I know you don't necessarily put it at the forefront of your business, but who is kind of vegan committed in that way, and sort of to see people go along that journey and eventually say to you, do you know what, Vanessa, I've kind of discovered all these other things about it as well, from the course of diet. I guess that's a pretty satisfying feeling for you.
Of course it is. I mean, anyone even eating a vegan meal and replacing just one thing is satisfying. And if you hear that that's on a sustainable level, and that it's a win-win as well, where you think, right, okay, then, the animals aren't getting eaten in that case, and this person's happy, and, they're going to continue doing that. It's fantastic. And, I do what I do because I love it, and because I've wanted for years to do something in the plant-based vegan space, because it is a huge passion of mine. I also love food, so that's very, very helpful, and that's a big part of why people like working with me as well, because it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. It's got to be delicious, but I want to be part of getting the world to where we want it to be. For the animals, for the environment, and for the overall global health of our people and planet.
I'm asking you to be overly generalistic here, but what are the generally speaking the biggest challenges folks face? Is it kind of, to my mind, it might be processed foods, too much processed food in their diets, too high sugar, and probably not enough time to, or at least a perception of not enough time to cook from scratch. What kind of are those? Are those the kind of things, or is there actually, I'm completely way off, and there's other big challenges that folks face?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some, and I like to say things like, so some big challenges that I'm going to say are everyone's challenges, vegan or non-vegan. So processed food, processed food isn't always necessarily, or ultra processed food isn't necessarily amazing for your health. But I'm gonna defend it all and say that is not a vegan problem. That is a food problem, and I think sometimes the vegan movement gets a bit bashed with this, like, the processed food and the vegan movement. It's like, are you all eating whole foods all day? You people that are saying this, excuse me.
100%.
It's not. It might be a problem, but it's not a vegan problem, kind of thing. And so I suppose there's like the problems first that I'll go for that are the everyone problems. Knowing what is a balanced diet. Loads of people do not know this. They don't even know what has protein in, or some people don't even know the difference between a refined carb versus a complex carb. Whole grain rice is a complex carb, and people are told, cut out carbs. I think another big general problem is, I don't even want to say too much information. Resources is not a problem because there are a gazillion recipes and resources. Let's face it, like millions of that kind of stuff, but it is confusing, and there's a lot of fads. I had a client, and we've been working on her relationship with carbs, because she thought they were bad, but all the people who are coming to me saying, I cut out carbs and thought they were bad, all those people are overweight and unhealthy, so it didn't do them any favors. And actually they're being told, cut out carbs is going to be good for you. So you're told all this stuff, or people, I've also met a lot of people, there are some bits of fasting and detoxing that can be good, but there are some people who are like, I'm going to go on like a 20-day detox and everything will kind of be okay. I'm like, right, what happens at the end of that? Like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? So I think people are sort of given quick fixes, fads. It gets them very confused. It gets their bodies very confused. So I think those are some really, really big problems. I think you're totally right about the time to cook thing. So what I've found is, again, because we're not taught this in school, we are not told that cooking should be this non-negotiable skill. And, some people say, but I don't know, my partner will cook or this or that. It's like, no. No one gets, what I sort of think is like, no one gets an out on cooking. Like, we need that to feed ourselves. Like, that is really important, and to fuel ourselves, but it's not given that importance. So, sometimes I have to have most people who come to me, they're willing to put some time aside, but they also need to be taught, and this is a big part of what I do is, okay, how can I do this in the most effective, efficient way? I basically, so in the last, week, I don't think I've cooked a proper meal because I had so much stuff in the freezer. Don't get me wrong, I'm still in my kitchen, preparing my breakfast, making a smoothie, making roasted chickpeas, marinating tofu. So I'm still doing those little bits. I'm still steaming my veg. But I've got so many meals like in the freezer, I haven't had to go, okay, I'm going to make a big meal. And fine, it is just me in the house as well. But people find that, they're like, seriously? You've eaten whole foods and healthy foods for a week and you haven't had to cook like a whole massive meal? And I might have had a meal out or something. It's like, well, actually, I've had so much food in the freezer actually that needs eating. I don't always, sometimes I cook more. That actually I've prepared so many different things that I've been able to do this. When I prepare tofu, I prepare enough that it's going to last me a few days. All of these sorts of things. People aren't taught this. They're not taught the efficiency. But I think there's a bit of a bit of an entitlement sometimes where people say, I shouldn't have to spend time cooking though. And I'm like, well, you're going to spend time being sick when you're older. Where do you want to put your time? Because you're not going to get out of it either way. If you don't spend time being healthy, you will pay for it in time later, whether that is in lack of energy, shorter lifespan, any of those sorts of things. But I think we are taught that everything should be so quick and easy. And if it's not, there's something wrong. And yes, I can give you loads of shortcuts, but some people, they've been given this sort of belief that they should never have to spend a moment in the kitchen. And, it's like, unfortunately, you're not going to have the health you want if you refuse to ever chop up a few carrots to go with something or whatever. It can be very simple, it can be very small, but if we think we don't have to do that, we are going to struggle with our health and our weight and our energy.
Has a shift to people being at home more, perhaps with lockdowns and so on, and working from home and more hybrid job roles and things like that? I know that's not the case for everybody, but in the main, that sort of happened for a number of people. Have you seen that actually help people in terms of their sort of perception of the need to cook and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's been a really, really good thing, actually. And, obviously I used to work in the sort of workplace change as well. And I saw a lot of those sort of hybrid roles and what people thought, and, people being able to actually have time to cook, that we have to find time to cook whenever we can. And say you don't have the commute, you can use that morning time to go, do you know what, I'm going to prepare a few bits so that I've got, these things for lunch or whatever. And, I don't have to commute on the way home. So I'm going to make sure I'm cooking up, bulk cooking, whatever it is, you want to have a lovely big, spicy chickpea korma or something like that. I think it's so important. I think a lot more workplaces, the forward thinking ones, on board 100%, they totally get it. Any workplaces out there who aren't doing that, message for you, get on board to make your people happier and healthier, and they will work better for you as well. People don't have to be bums and seats in front of you all the time to show they're working, but actually we have to. I think workplaces have got a responsibility to people's mental health and physical health, and I would love to see more workplaces, and that's also something I'm looking to go and do more, is actually go into workplaces and help more people with their diets and their eating, because I think the workplace has the opportunity to really transform people as well, because people spend more hours in work, even if you're sitting at home, they spend more hours in work than they do anywhere else. So actually, if your workplace can be providing the right environment for you, if they can be providing information, little plug, get me into your workplace to do a talk and coach some of your people in part of your wellbeing program, I am here for it. You can actually get a lot for your people, huge benefits for your people, and that is going to translate into a happier company, a more productive company, a more attractive company for new talent and things like that. I think, that's a huge area that still needs to be worked on, and some workplaces are doing a lot more and fantastic work, but obviously, every workplace is different. Some are doing fantastic work and it's brilliant. Others, a little bit more behind.
Absolutely. I'd love to talk to you about this sort of the journey that people go on when they start working alongside you, through to kind of later on down the line when they're perhaps, like you mentioned, maybe 90%, maybe even fully plant-based, and maybe even adopting some vegan ethics and so on. But I'm just curious, because at the beginning of that journey, I speak to so many people who at the beginning of the journey, they may be not as comfortable cooking as perhaps you were when you started, and a lot of the things that we take as kind of commonplace in the plant-based sort of diet world, if you like, or plant-based eating world, they find at the beginning you find a bit alien. I remember, I don't think truth be told, personal disclosure, I don't think I'd ever eaten tofu prior to being vegan as one basic example, let alone millet or alfalfa or anything like that came a long time later. And after a lot of conversations, how do you go about taking somebody on that journey from, if they were like me, from I'm not really into cooking much, into actually not only are you going to be into cooking, but you're going to be buying ackee, you're going to be buying alfalfa, you're going to be doing all these kind of things?
No, I think it's a really good question, because I think one of the biggest reasons people don't go into some of this health stuff is because it is so overwhelming. Is they try and read an article and it just talks about millet and alfalfa, and they're like, out of my comfort zone, shut the laptop down, quick, run away. And I totally get that, because it's just like I don't even know where to start. And what I do is I really start people kind of where they're at. So if the first swap is let's go with white rice and have whole grain rice instead, that is a cool swap. That is great. That is going to help people. Let's do that first. Let's at least getting them buying the fruit and veg that's obvious in the supermarket first, because some of them aren't even doing that. You know, they all know what a banana is. It's like, okay, let's at least get you eating some more bananas, kind of thing, getting you putting fruit on your breakfast and stuff like that. So I think there's that starting people off, but then there's also that educational side, which is you know, the why behind things. So if I'm going to have millet, well, it's part of the grains that we might have, you know. So let's kind of go. Let's understand why we need more complex carbohydrates, and then we can try different things as well, even if it's barley grain or rye grain or whatever else the other things are, or quinoa. And I know some of these they're seeds, not grains, and they're called pseudo grains, but let's lump them all together because that is a lot easier as well. But if people understand why they need that, and I say, okay, so next time instead of rice, try a different grain. They're like, okay, I get why I'm doing that, and I get where that grain's going to sit on my plate now. It's sometimes those kind of small steps that really help, but I think that's often why people make these really quick transformations with me, is because they have that support and someone explaining this to them, as opposed to, oh, I better go to the local health food shop and buy what they see as obscure ingredients, and then they go, well, they're sitting in my cupboard with no idea of how to use them. But I did want to mention something about tofu as well. So one of the things people do when they work with me is I do a tofu masterclass with them, where you make tofu like 7 different ways from 3 blocks of plain tofu. And I do sort of say, you know, tofu, when people say, oh, I don't like tofu, it doesn't taste of anything, I say that's like taking a bag of plain flour and saying, I don't like plain flour, it doesn't taste of anything. You've got to flavour it up. Plain flour can be turned into the most delicious chocolate cake. Tofu can be turned into all these incredible things, whether it's tofu faken, I make a tofu halloumi with them, crispy nugget, crispy garlicky tofu bite things, and all of that kind of stuff. So I suppose once you understand more about the product, and then you understand it, this breaking down the information, isn't it? So you break, you know, when someone sees tofu and it looks complicated, but then they go through a process of, okay, we're going to make tofu in this way. Let's do that together with these just few ingredients. Oh, okay, that's all it was. Whew, that wasn't as scary as I thought. You know, people saying marinate. Oh, I don't know what marinate. Oh, I don't know what that is. So let's do it together. Get Tupperware, and we'll do this together. And doing it in small bits makes it less scary.
Yeah, no doubt. For folks who've perhaps been doing, living a plant-based lifestyle, have been vegan for many years, etc. They often get quizzed around the kind of cost of their eating habits by friends and family who perhaps are omnivorous and want to find a particular area to challenge on. Do you find that often when people come to you, even though they're kind of accepting of like, I need some help, but actually, if you're going to send me too much down that plant-based route, I've heard it's really expensive. How, do you have that? And then how do you go about combating that kind of perception?
Yeah, sure. And you're right. It is a thing that we hear a lot. Because it generally applies to the products and more processed food, it is generally... I'm going to say more overall problem again than a vegan problem, you know, because people sort of sometimes switch to vegan or plant-based and buy a lot of these products, and it's like, well, yeah, actually that you're buying something that someone's made, and so you are paying for that labor and those other things as well, and those products that are on the market have been fantastic for helping people transition. But yes, before people work with me, some people do say, oh, I'm a bit worried about this being expensive, but that very quickly goes away, because the base of what I teach people is how to make things from whole foods. And we all know that lentils and vegetables are very, very cheap and doesn't have to cost much at all. Even to have organic lentils is really not that expensive compared to other organic food if you buy them dried. If you buy tinned beans, organic is a bit more expensive, but dried ones, even that is not particularly expensive. So if people are having these quite basic ingredients and they're using that as a basis for their diet, they very quickly say, oh, actually, this isn't particularly expensive. And then my approach to the more processed foods, first of all, I say, you know, get used to looking on the back of the packet. Some of them are going to be have a longer ingredient list than others, but in the end, we're all busy and we all have nights where we don't want to cook. And if you want to buy some vegan burgers, like, go for it. It's fine. Go and try the products, enjoy things. People are bringing out vegan chorizo sausages and, vegan fish cakes, even though I've got a recipe for fish cakes as well. But, people are bringing this stuff out. And actually, it is fun to have some of that stuff sometimes and try it. So go and enjoy yourself, but just still make sure the rest of what you're eating is kind of balanced and, you're not buying loads and loads of these products. You're just having them occasionally, and then you've still got your potato chips and your veg, and let's face it, your potatoes and veg didn't cost very much.
Do you have any sort of concern sometimes? I'm sort of probably voicing my own sometimes little nervousness around this, that it's become, veganism has become synonymous with health in this sort of mainstream kind of culture. And as we know, veganism is not a diet. Veganism's an ethical stance and a position. But people can sometimes see vegan stamped on the product, think it's healthy, and then start to eat a lot more processed foods. They can do if they're not, perhaps, they haven't necessarily done that research or been supported in some way. And actually it can have a negative impact on their likelihood to stay or become vegan properly, if you like, because they don't feel any benefit. They might even feel a detriment based on their diet previously, might have actually had less processed food.
Yeah.
So it's more of a sort of amusing that I'd like to get your opinion on, really, than a question per se. But I do think there's something in that sort of worries me a little bit, that there's this very like almost tweetable version of like vegan equals healthy, instead of vegan is an ethical stance. Plant-based diets can be healthy. Plant-based diets can also be very unhealthy. But that nuance is often missed, and that kind of concerns me a little. How do you feel about that?
No, I think you're so right. And I've been doing loads of musings on this, and there's lots of articles on this and stuff, because yes, officially, and I've got different like, there's different perspectives. Yeah, vegan is about the ethical, it is meant to be about the ethical standpoint. But for convenience, we've used the word vegan to describe the food. So that is also something people connect with. So they're like, oh, that is vegan food. And that people generally understand what that means. And you're right, some people have gone, oh, vegan must mean healthy. And then sometimes people have gone, oh, no, plant-based is the one that means healthy. Plant-based. And then what's to confuse it even more is that some marketers, and I can understand where this might have come from, is they're saying, right, if you're not in it for the animals, or if we just want to make this sound a bit softer and not use the word vegan, we're going to use the word plant-based, which means that stuff that is ultra processed could end up being labeled plant-based because someone's trying to get away from the word vegan. So that makes it kind of confusing, because it was like, oh, well, but I thought the word plant-based was meant to mean healthy, and now that's being used for that, okay. And then you get some people saying, oh, I'm vegan 3 days a week, and then someone saying, you can't be vegan 3 days a week. So there's all of these arguments. Yeah. And, if someone says to me, I'm vegan 3 days a week, to be honest, I'm not going to take them up on their language. I'm going to go, that's great. Because there's also that side of things. It's like, do we want to be pedantic about language, or do we want to make a change? But sometimes you're like, well, do we need to be pedantic about it? But yes, you're right. I think people are confused, and I think it harks back to the problems that we were sort of previously talking about, which is just people are not taught in general what's healthy at all. So when a new product does come out, I'm just wondering there, how many people flip that product over and have a look at what's in the product? That doesn't mean don't eat it. So if I say to people, right, just because a product doesn't look healthy, that does not mean you can't eat it. It just means give it the due place it needs in your diet and life. That's all. But very few people know how to do that. And I think that's even more of a problem. So we can have all these words and everything, and unfortunately you and I aren't going to be able to control the words that are being thrown around and being labelled on products and all of that kind of stuff. But if people just understood what was healthy and what wasn't, then it wouldn't matter so much as well. And then yes, of course it'd be helpful if people knew that the word vegan did mean a bit more ethical, but the word vegan has been used for vegan food for so long that we can't really undo that now. It's like, well, this is our vegan menu in a restaurant. You're not going to say to that restaurant, well, unless you're fully vegan, you can't have a vegan menu because you're not vegan restaurant.
Yeah.
We could take it really far. But, there would also be no point in, I suppose, wasting our energy on that. I just feel like there's, because I've been thinking a lot about this recently, and it is, it's complicated.
Yeah, I hear it myself, even with the podcast, where where people will perhaps comment on something or kind of say in that particular podcast you said vegan diet, and it was I'd said it in a kind of obviously referring to food.
Yes, yeah.
But I think we should get away from the vegan diet thing. I agree on, like, you're right, there should be a distinction, but I think you make a really valid point, which is there is also a reality that these terms are synonymous and have been for many years, and the only way you can sort of make peace with those terms is through your own education, and whether you are comfortable with that product or that, whether it be food, whether it be an item of clothing or a cosmetic or whatever, you have to be comfortable that it is, what you want to either put on yourself or into your body or whatever it may be, and it meets your ethical position. It's a real challenge. I do think there is a debate to be had on a sort of almost a legal level with companies, where I think that we need to have some clarity from a labelling perspective, because I think, there was an example I'd heard of recently where a product was labelled plant-based because it was 80% plants and it had chicken in it or something. It was some crazy, like, it actually had an animal product in it, but was kind of like, well, we're giving you less animal-based product, so it's, that kind of stuff I think is worrying, and we have to have some clarity there from a labelling point of view. That's a discussion for another day, I know, but
I do agree.
But I love your perspective. Vanessa, it's been amazing chatting with you. I've certainly reframed some things in my mind and thought about things a little bit differently, and I thank you for that. Where would folks go about finding you and getting some support should they want to?
Yeah, fantastic. And it's been great speaking to you, by the way, as well. I've really enjoyed being on here. You can follow me on Instagram, Energise and Thrive Plant-based. Energise is spelt with an S, the British way, by the way. Please join my group on Facebook, which is called How to Go Plant-Based. You can interact with me personally on there. Lots of tips, recipes and fun. Everyone is welcome, whether you are just plant curious or all the way up to fully vegan. Everyone is welcome to talk about and get inspired on plant-based food. And I have actually just brought out a free guide, which is 5 steps to a balanced plant-based diet. I think the listeners would find that really helpful. I know you said you're going to stick a link down below to that. Yep. So do click on that link, and do feel free to DM me on Facebook or Instagram through the How to Go Plant-Based group. You can find me, Vanessa Sturman, in there, or on my Energise and Thrive Plant-Based Instagram.
Wonderful stuff. Well, all the links will be in the show notes, so do check those out. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you so much.